welcome you all, and I'd like to thank you all for attending this blessed event, especially our guests from the Greater Shepperton Council, Mayor Kim O'Keefe and Renee Scott, and for giving us this opportunity to appreciate the diversity within our community. May Allah continue to bless us and give us tawfiq in order to keep this message alive. The discussion concerning the tragedy of Karbala is a discussion with utmost importance. Today I'd like to briefly speak about Imam al-Hussein as a whole persona and what his mission has to do with us today in the contemporary world. Imam Hussein ibn Ali was the grandson of the Holy Prophet, the last Prophet of Islam, born in the year 620 AD. Imam Hussein grew up with dignity and compassion that his grandfather displayed, and as such became a leader who was known widely for his compassion, wisdom and integrity. Imam Hussein is a historical figure revered by Muslims and non-Muslims across the world. Imam Hussein gave such a stand that famous individuals have praised him for this. Notably, Mahatma Gandhi said, "My faith is that the progress of Islam does not depend on the use of sword by its believers, but the result of the supreme sacrifice that Hussein had made, the great saint." Another figure that praised Imam Hussein is Dr. Khalid Sheldrake, the famous biochemist and author. He stated that Hussein marched with his little company not to glory, not to power or wealth, but to a supreme sacrifice, and every member of that gallant band, male and female, knew that the foes were implacable, were not only ready to fight, but were also ready to kill. They were denied even water for their children. They remained parched under the sun, amid scorching sands, yet no one faltered for a moment and bravely faced the greatest odds without flinching. To give some context behind Ashora, let us briefly delve into the history of this tragic event. Not long after the death of the Holy Prophet, the Islamic Empire had fallen back into its old habits. Hussein saw his grandfather's teachings eroded by the Caliph Yazid. Slowly the moral fabric of society began to decay as Yazid ruled with his own interests in mind. Imam Hussein was highly respected within the society, and his endorsement would carry great weight. So Yazid needed a man like Hussein to follow his rule in order to provide his legitimacy to his corrupt government. But Hussein was a man of morals, and he strived for social justice. Imam Hussein could not sit and endorse Yazid, so he decided to speak out against him, despite it being a risk to his life. Hussein chose to make the ultimate stand for social justice. He chose to leave his hometown along with his family and a few companions. When word reached Yazid of Hussein's stand, he sent an army of 30,000 soldiers to prevent Hussein and get him to give his allegiance. Yazid knew fully well that Imam Hussein had a great amount of influence, and that what had started as a small stand with his family and his companions could indeed become a stand of tens of thousands of people. So what did Yazid do? Yazid gave Hussein an ultimatum, meaning you either come with me or you die. Yazid said, you either obey me or you die. Imam Hussein did not want any violence. He said, I do not want any violence. I do not want any bloodshed. However, he knew he could not stand by Yazid's word. Instead, he chose to stick to his very own principles. Having refused to obey him, Yazid ordered his men to kill Hussein on the 10th day of Muharram, in the first month of Islamic calendar known as Muharram. This is also known as the day of Ashura. Hussein and his companions and his family were forced to stop in the desert land of Karbala by Yazid's soldiers. At the dawn of the day of Ashura, Hussein and his men knew what was coming, and they made their final prayers. Despite knowing that they would all die that day, all of Hussein's companions, which had reached over roughly 72 people, stayed loyal to him and their cause, and chose to die loyal to their principles rather than to live under a corrupt ruler. The Battle of Karbala began at noon. Despite the small number of Imam al-Hussein's army and his men, knowing that they would light the fire of revolution, they fought the army of Yazid very courageously. However, one after another, the companions of Imam Hussein were killed until Hussein remained himself alone. As the evening was drawing near, Hussein was all alone, fatigued, thirsty, and heavily wounded. He did not give up and stuck to his principles till the very end. Eventually Hussein himself fell after being attacked by the army from all sides. Hussein was killed, but his stand would be remembered by those striving for social justice for over thousands of years after him. Hussein left a legacy that will never be forgotten. When Imam Hussein died in the battle, the message of Hussein was born. His actions and stand at Karbala inspired a series of small uprisings against Yazid, which eventually led to his demise. Yazid showed the world his corrupt morals after the Battle of Karbala, where he took the family of Hussein and forced them as captives to make them walk nearly 1,000 kilometers of journey to his palace. Hussein's family did not give in to Yazid. They too were inspired by Hussein's stand. Hussein's sister Sayyida Zainab and his son Ali ibn al-Hussein both gave powerful speeches against Yazid in front of his ministers. Yazid realized that if he had left the family of Hussein at his palace, they would demean him in front of his ministers, and even further would make him look like a fool. So he sent them back to their hometown of Medina. The family of Hussein would spend their lives spreading the word about Hussein's stand and teaching morals and the principles of Hussein. The day of Ashura is mourned and remembered by millions of people, Muslim or non-Muslim, across the world. Hussein and his supporters were killed in the Battle of Karbala. Today, pilgrims from all around the world visit the shrine of Hussein ibn Ali in Karbala, where he was buried, to pay tribute to his courageous stand approximately 1400 years ago. On the day of Ashura, many Muslims partake in largely peaceful gatherings where they recite poems in the memory of Hussein, where they recite poems and they lament as a cultural tradition to display their grievance. Many people use the day of Ashura as a day to perform kindness, acts of kindness and charity, as a way for them to keep alive the very same principles and values that Hussein gave his life for. Of course, as for a contemporary issue, we've all been aware about social media and everything. It is apparent that the pattern of oppression has been repeated numerous times since the tragedy of Karbala. Unfortunately, tyranny and oppression has impacted our society greatly and the people, and it continues to do so. Today, the people of Afghanistan are reliving what they did 20 years ago under the oppressive rule of the Taliban. The pain, the heartbreak, the fear, the panic has taken over lives once again. As humans, it is only just that we do not leave the people of Afghanistan in despair. We stand in solidarity with the people of Afghanistan and the Afghan families that have lost so much during these moments. Please keep Afghanistan in your prayers. Thank you. Salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.